All right, so we're going to talk about the very last method to solve systems of equations. If we're being honest, this is perhaps the easiest and most efficient way to solve systems, and it's probably going to be the way you favor to solve them, okay? So the first thing we need in order to solve using elimination is to get either your x or y coefficients opposite signs. So we need to get either x or your y coefficients to be opposite signs. What I really mean by that is if we have like 3x plus 7y equals 2, and we have 3x plus 7y, or sorry, let's go 2y equals 7. We want to get these x's to be opposite signs. So we want our coefficients to be the same number and have opposite signs. So since one's positive, we would need to make one negative by changing the sign of everything, okay? So we want them to be the same number and opposite signs. And it doesn't matter if you do your x coefficients or your y coefficients, okay? Then, after you do that, you simply add your equations together. So we add our equations together. And then the last thing, you would solve for x and y. Oh, I spelled and wrong. So, and y. Okay. So, looking at example 1, we want to look at our x coefficients and our y coefficients. So, it may be a little cumbersome to think about, but I normally try to figure out, are any of them already the same number? So are they both 2 or 1 or whatever? So in this case, our x's have the same coefficient, whereas our y's don't. So we're going to ignore our y's, right? So that's -4 and 3, whereas these are both -1. But they're both -1, so I want to make one positive. If we're being honest, it doesn't matter which one you make positive, okay? So I normally just do the top one because it's the first one I see. So how do I make a -1 into a +1? Well, I multiply it by -1. So I'm going to distribute a -1 to everything in these parentheses. And I'm going to rewrite that. I do the top, so that way I could just rewrite it right underneath. -1 times -1 is a positive x, right? And then -1 times -4 is a positive 4y. And then a -1 times a -18 is a positive 18. So now we've just taken this top thing, equation, and we've just rewritten it down here with the new signs that it wanted. I don't want that to be highlighted anymore. Darn it. Oh, sorry. X plus 4y equals 18. Okay, so now we're going to add up those equations. So what I mean by add them up is I simply add up -1x plus x. When we do that, those are going to cancel, right? Those cancel out. Now I add up 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7, so I'm going to have 7y. 10 plus 18 is 28. So now I have 7y equals 28. So now I need to solve that equation, right? And I solve that by just dividing by 7. So I get y equals 4. So now I have part of my answer, right? Because my answer has to be an ordered pair. So I have y equals 4. So we're going to take this y and we're going to plug it back in to one of the original equations. So that's important. It needs to go back into the original equations. So it doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm just going to plug it into the top one. So we have -x minus 4y equals -18. And we have that y is equal to 4. So we're going to plug in 4 for y and then solve that. So negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 equals negative 18. Add 16 to both sides because we're solving this equation now. Those cancel. I'm left with negative x equals negative 2. Is negative x the same as x? No, right? We've talked about that negative 1 implied, so divide both sides by negative 1, and we'll get x is equal to 2. And then that's my answer. Okay, so I got my coefficients for either my x or my y to be the same number but opposite signs. I added up my equations, solved for x and y respectively, and then that's your answer. Okay, so let's do another one, example 2. So we have 5 and 3, and then negative 2 and negative 10. So neither one of those are the same number. So we need to get them to be the same number. Can 3 go into 5? What about 2 into 10? Can 2 become 10? Yes, right? We can multiply this bottom by a 5, and that's going to turn this 2 into a 10, right? But they're both negative. So I want this minus 2 to actually turn into a plus 10. So I'm not going to multiply by just a positive 5, but also a minus 5. So we're going to distribute a negative 5 to everything in there. So because we want to add them up, I'm going to rewrite this top equation first. So that way I have a nice place to add them up. Now I'm going to write my second one, right? So we have negative 5 times 3, which is negative 15x. We have negative 5 times negative 2, which gives me plus 10y. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Okay, so now we add up those equations. We add them up. So we have 5 minus 15. So that's going to give us negative 10. If it helps to do this, you could write that. So we have negative 10x. These y's cancel. And this gives us 0. So we have negative 10x equals 0. So we could solve that, right, by dividing both sides by negative 10. And you'll just get x is equal to 0. So it's okay for x to be equal to 0 or y, okay? So then we're going to plug this in to solve for y into one of the original equations. I normally just do the one with smaller numbers or the top one. In this case, I'm going to do the one with smaller numbers. So our smaller number one is this one. So we'll plug it in at 3x minus 2y equals 3. So we have x is equal to 0, right? So we have 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 3. Now we're going to solve that equation. So 3 times 0 is 0, which we don't really care about. So we have minus 2y equals 3. So we want to get y alone. Divide both sides by negative 2. And we're just going to leave it as a fraction. Okay, so we're going to leave it as negative 3/2. So that's what y is equal to. All right, so we got one more to do. Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. We want to look at our x values and our y values. So again, I always try to deal with the smaller numbers between 6 and 3 and 2 and 1. 2 and 1 are the smaller numbers. So good news is one's already positive and one's negative, so I don't need to worry about that. So we just really need to get this negative 1 to become a negative 2. And we do that by multiplying everything by 2, right? So I'm going to distribute a 2 to everything in the parentheses. So again, I'm just going to rewrite the first one. exactly how I see it because I'm not doing anything to that one. Now I'm going to write my second one. 2 times -1 is -2x. 2 times -3 is -6y. 2 times 6 is 12. And again, remember, we add up these equations. 2x minus 2x, well, that gives us 0, right? They cancel. 6y minus 6y, uh-oh, they cancel as well, so that gives us 0. And then 4 plus 12 equals 16. So we have 0 plus 0 equals 16. So we really have 0 is equal to 16. Is 0 equal to 16? Hopefully you're saying no. So my answer is no solutions. Okay? So we can't lose our understanding of no solutions and infinite solutions as we go through, okay? All right, so we're going to do a lot more practice with this, so don't worry. Yeah.